The way I came out of that though is because I had been, just kind of sitting around in my feelings. And I'm like, man, my mama really, she wouldn't have wanted me to just sit and wallow in this pity and this sadness. My mama used to love bragging on me. I'm like, I'm gonna go back to school, give my mom something to brag about. My first year of grad school was the toughest for me, only because I wasn't used to dealing with feelings. And we come from tough background. We taught not to deal with emotions. We don't show no emotions as weakness. And by the time I'm done, I'm crying. By the time I get off the stage, I'm like, yo, I want to do this forever. And then that's when I transitioned into acting with my pops.
My pops is brothers.
Oh yeah, everybody knew my pops.
Monk
As soon as you say Monk Johnson, everybody like, Monk Johnson, that's your pop. Everybody respected him, everybody knew him, man. Everybody feared him was what I started noticing. People started telling me stories. I'm like, he was feared. And then the way I came out of that though is because I had been, just kind of sitting around in my feelings. I hated everybody hated me. And I'm like, man, my mama really, she wouldn't have wanted me to just sit in this and wallow in this pity and this sadness. So I'm like, I'm gonna go back to school. My mama used to love bragging on me. I'm like, I'm gonna go back to school, give my mom something to brag about. So I went up to UMKC, I'm flipping through the admissions book. I didn't know what I wanted to go for. And then I stopped on acting and I'm like, man, I got a big brother who be acting. I'm like, my people's like, they do their thing. Like, it shouldn't be too hard. I didn't plan on really being serious with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just wanted to, I thought it would be easy. I was just trying to do something that was easy just to get the degree, to be like, mama, I did it, and I was still doing music at the time. So I was going like, I'm just going up there so I could sell my CDs on campus. And then everything changed with this, the first play I did for real. I did this monologue, man, and by the end of it, it was the last performance that we did. I was arguing with my baby mama. I went out walking, had my son with me. Went out walking, I go to the theater, and I do this monologue that I had been doing for like 20 performances. I wasn't doing nothing but saying words that I memorized. It's the first time though that I was doing it, and I was like realizing what I was saying as I was saying it, and it was hitting me. And by the time I'm done, I'm crying. By the time I get off the stage, I'm like, yo, I want to do this forever. I'm like, man, that feeling that I just got, I want to get that to other people, and I want to recreate it for myself. And then that's when I transitioned into acting, man. I went hardcore. Read every book I could read on every director, on every acting technique, on every play that I could read, like all of that. I just went hard, full force into it, and was like, I got to catch up because the people I'm in school with, they younger than me. This was I started UMKC 2012, 2013, something like that. And I was 22, 23 at the time. So a lot of the other students who was already there, they coming straight out of high school, they all, younger than me. So I'm like, they younger than me and they know all this stuff already. So I'm like, man, I'm about to catch up. I went hard. I knew I wanted to go, and by the time I was into my second year, I knew I wanted to go to grad school. I'm like, I'm gonna just keep going with this because I love it, and I love the training. I love, it changed me as a person. It really put me in touch with the world outside of me and not just the small-minded thinking that I kind of came from. Like, we grew up in the hood. My nephews say all the time, like, man, I don't leave the cul-de-sac. And I thought about that. I'm like, man, that's crazy though. Just something as simple as that. I'm like, that's crazy. We got that mentality. Like, man, we ain't trying to leave here. But I was always traveling though. Like I said, I was back and forth between Jersey and stuff. So I had seen other things and I wanted to do. I'm like, I want more out of life. And man, when I started that acting, it put me in touch with my emotions. It put me in touch with, cause a lot of my teachers told me like, the best actors, when you learn how to be an actor, you got to learn how to be a person first. So that's what it was about. It was learning how to be a human. And then when I went into grad school, it was that times a million. Like, just like the grad school I went to Rutgers in Jersey, and I chose that school because of the training that they got. It's called Meisner training, and it's a training that really opens you up. I remember that first year, man, I was raw, bro. Like, I ain't never dealt with emotions like that. You know what I'm saying? We come from tough background. We taught not to deal with emotions. We don't show no emotions as weakness. You know what I'm saying? And then once I got to school, it was like, we gonna take all of that and just throw all of that away. So I just felt like my emotions was outside of my body every day. Like, my first year of grad school was the toughest for me, only because I wasn't used to dealing with feelings. You know what I'm saying? I was crying for everything, bro. I never cried for nothing. That first year I was crying for everything. One time I saw a squirrel when I was walking on campus and it was dying. Squirrel dying. I sat there and watched it. I started crying, bro. I'm like, man, what the fuck is wrong with me, man? Like, I'm like, what is wrong with me? What's going on? But it was a good thing, you know what I'm saying? Because my professor had told me, like, yeah, that first year is gonna be rough, especially for the older students. I was an older student. I was grad school. I got there, I was like 27 when I got there. He's like, yeah, especially for the older students, because you already learned how to have all these blocks up. The world that we live in, you got to have them blocks up. You can't just be vulnerable and have your feelings outside every day you walk in this world we live in. So the older you get, the more you taught to block off stuff. You know what I'm saying? When we a kid, that's when we the most free. And then as we become adults, we learn to be afraid of stuff. We learn to shut out emotion. We learn all this stuff that I had to unlearn. But what he had told me, like, it's about balance, because that first year is gonna be hard. And then that second year is about learning how to use that, but not having your emotions just outside all the time, but learning how to use that, still keeping that what you got to keep to survive in this world. And man, once I start figuring that out, man, everything started changing, everything started opening up. Man, I started having a lot more opportunities. I was doing plays, doing readings and stuff on Broadway.
Before we go there real quick, I don't want to cut you off, but I want to rewind it back a little bit to your childhood.
Yeah.
So you said your step pop stayed in Jersey.
Yeah.
So did you ever get to meet your real pops?
Yeah. I don't really remember him, if I'm being honest, man. I remember he used to, the memory I have, the biggest memory I have of my pops.
My pops is brothers. Back when you was getting caught in my house with PJ back in the day.
Yep.
We didn't even know we was cousins back then. That's crazy.
Man.
What you saying though?
Nah, yeah. What I always used to remember about Pops, like more than I remember him, I remember he used to just always drop shit off. Like, I'll never forget the biggest memory I got of him. It ain't even of him. It's that he bought me this bike for like, I don't even remember what holiday. It was either my birthday or Christmas. He bought me this bike, and it was this big ass, like, I'm a little nigga. I don't remember what year this is. Some year of my childhood, but it was a bike that I couldn't even fit on it. It was so big, probably like a 10 speed, and I'm like a little dude, you know what I'm saying? But he dropped his bike off, and I only remember because my mama for 2 weeks straight kept talking shit about that bike. Why would he bring this big ass bike over here, knowing you can't get on this bike? But that's all I remember of him, is that every once in a while he used to drop stuff off, you know what I mean? But I ain't never really get to kick it with him like that when I was a kid. You know, I think he passed with, I don't even remember what year, how old I was when he passed.
95 maybe, or 94.
Yeah, so I was like 9, 8 or 9, 10, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But yeah, but I always stayed in contact with my brother, with Khalik, you know what I'm saying? So he used to always tell me about Pops, tell me the stories. The only way I ever even met the other side of the family is when I was with him. Every once in a while we'd go, like Aunt Lou, I was always super close to. Super close to Aunt Lou, so I used to go over her house and stuff like that. But other than that, man, I always say, like, man, that was a link I was missing, man.
Over here and get a good legendary street stories and all that.
Oh yeah. I hear all the stories, man. My mama used to tell me a lot of stories, actually, but every time I run into anybody, because everybody knew my pops. As soon as you say Monk Johnson, everybody like, Monk Johnson, that's your pop? They said, them red Converse, boy? Everybody used to talk about his red Converse. They was like, well, it's time to get out the way. Everybody respected him. Everybody knew him, man. Everybody feared him was what I started noticing. People started telling me stories. I'm like, oh, he was feared.